Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is the Creative Collaboration Show with Chuck Anderson, and this is the show where we help business owners and entrepreneurs with tips and strategies and advice that can help you to grow your business to whatever extent you want to grow it. And sometimes that means a strategy or something that you implement into your business. Sometimes that means growing and working on yourself. Oftentimes it's both. And so I like to invite guests here who align with that thought process, but also are engaged in work that can help along those lines. And so so today's guest for sure works with business owners as a coach and a consultant and can help you grow your business. So today I have Bogdan Rosu with me today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Chuck, for having me. Yeah, and you're probably gonna see me looking to the side because your face is over there, but my camera is over here, unfortunately. So I'll do my best to switch between the two.
No problem. Well, that's the cool thing about technology. I have three screens as well, and so I was watching myself back on a webinar that I did. And of course, the camera's here and the slides are here, but then I had the chat over here and then I had something else over. So the whole time I'm watching myself, and occasionally I'm looking at the camera, but other times I'm doing this and looking at the other screens as well. Um, that's just how it is anymore. Like computers aren't just one screen anymore. They're multiple screens. All right. Well, this show is not about computers, so we'll go from there, but it's all good. So listen, I think the best place to start is your story, and tell everybody a little bit about you and the work that you do, and how it came to be that you're doing this work.
Sure. Um, I like to think of myself because like everybody's a coach these days. I don't see myself as a coach necessarily. I'm an amplifier of money and freedom for experts and entrepreneurs. I've worked with complete beginners to multimillionaires. For example, one of my biggest clients, a gentleman doing 120 million a year, he was terrified to do anything to grow his business because he believed that he would make a mistake and then lose millions. So I quickly showed him that it wasn't the case. And in fact, he was actually a business badass. And that heightened level of confidence allowed him to take serious steps towards doubling his business. Um, the way that this came about was that number one, I became obsessed with how people work. I was horrible when it came to people when I was a kid. I had like was extremely awkward socially. In fifth grade, I was voted as being the most disliked kid in class, and you can imagine like actually somebody took a poll for that, and that was a big defining moment for me. And couple that with Romania post the revolution. I live in Romania. I'm Romanian. In '89, we had communism collapse all over the world, including here. So my parents were transitioning from communism to capitalism. My dad, especially, he started his own business, but the business had like a very difficult time taking off. It actually took my dad around 10 to 15 years to have, to experience abundance from his business. And you can imagine the mark that left a mark as well. So combining, this obsession for how people work and understanding that, and mainly understanding myself, because the reason why that happened was because I had no confidence. And this idea, this relationship with money, this is how kind of I came to be. But before being a coach, I actually had another passion. I started the first ever personal development through martial arts program. And that's why my work is called the Warrior Shaman Business
Hmm.
Growth System.
That's interesting because in doing research for this interview, and I went on to YouTube and searched for you, actually saw some videos of you talking about
Yeah.
martial arts and that. And so it's interesting because I always think about when I think about martial arts, I just think about the discipline and I think about
Right.
the repetition and the mastery that goes into all of that. So that's interesting how you've sort of like connected the dots and how you've used that now in your business. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, what are some of the principles, or what did you learn from martial arts that really applies to what you're doing and with the work that you do with your clients?
Sure. The core principle that I got from martial arts was yin and yang. Because if you're always on the offensive, you're losing because you're actually being the one controlled. And if you're always on the defensive, you're still losing. You need a healthy balance between yin and yang. Actually, everything is yin and yang. You cannot grow your business without having a period of chaos, right? I see this all the time with myself, with my clients. Whenever they tap into a new level of confidence of saying, hey, this is what I want from life, the first thing that happens, the house gets cleaned up, right? All of the shit, all of the negative. Can I swear on this?
Oh, sure, yeah, go ahead. We
Okay,
don't. I don't think we have any kids in our audience.
perfect. So all the shit that was buried deep down comes to the surface for you to deal with. And it's a natural rhythm of life, right? We like to talk about balance as entrepreneurs. Balance is a pulsation. Balance is knowing when to sit and when to move, right? Because balance, having this idea of balance of nothing moving, that means that you're dead. So everything when it comes to my work has this yin and yang approach. The warrior shaman, apparent opposites. They're not. It's a spiral because the warrior feeds the shaman feeds the warrior. The shaman heals limiting beliefs and turns trauma into treasure. The warrior allows you to tap into higher levels of confidence so that you go after bigger projects, bigger clients, charge what you're worth, and thrive. And couple that with business strategies, personalized business strategies. What I find usually is that you pay for business coaching, fine, great strategies around lead generation, sales, service delivery, but then you're because your mindset doesn't match the level of your business strategies, you never really fully use it. You don't believe you deserve success. You don't believe that you can handle or learn these new strategies. So you kind of either procrastinate, you put it to the side, or you kind of half-ass it, right? The same thing happens with mindset. You buy some mindset coaching, right? You get a bit of a better handle on your emotions. Maybe you learn a bit about manifesting more abundance, but then it's like, okay, but how do I actually generate leads and sales calls? I love to give the people I work with both. I don't believe in cookie cutter business strategies. I don't believe in cookie cutter mindset approaches. I need to understand exactly what's going on, see exactly what's kind of driving you and what's blocking you. And then together, of course, I give suggestions, but it's like, if I give you a system, my system, and it works for you, I failed as a coach. My definition of success is I awaken the business owner inside of you who can create the systems, the tools, the mindset, everything that you need to elevate.
Interesting. Yeah, because and that's where you see so much of coaching, especially in business, is, use my strategy, use my tactic. And of course, we always need to be learning about how tactics evolve and how the
Mhm.
technology evolves, and that's just good information and keeping us up to date. but then how to apply it, real that's where we apply our own creativity to it, and then but also what do we bring to it.
Yeah, 100%. And what I find is that the how really doesn't matter that much. The how is easy. You find the how online on YouTube. It's free, right? What
Mm-hmm.
matters is the
Mm.
who you're being when you're using these strategies. Are you being your most confident self? Or are you being the version of you who's full of fear and doubts, right? You might have the best sales script. If you don't believe in yourself, if you don't believe in what you're selling, it doesn't matter. The how doesn't matter. It's all about the who. Who are
Mm.
you choosing to be in this moment?
That's a really good point, because I tell the people in my group program all the time that, what it because they ask me, what does it take, to sell at higher prices, or to sell this higher ticket program, or it could be some other question, and the answer often comes down to confidence. When you can speak about it with confidence, and the question always is, does your program help people? And
Yeah.
if the answer isn't yes, you're going to have a really big problem selling it. It doesn't matter the price point. It doesn't matter the features and the benefits. It doesn't matter the bonuses and all of that. It's, does your program help people? And do you truly believe that it helps people transform or to get a better result?
Yeah, and like two things come up. The first is you'd be surprised how many people have exceptional results and still doubt themselves when it comes to selling more. I'll give you a concrete example. One of my most recent clients, this guy who his specialty is helping experts make more money in 5 days than they do in a year. He runs a done for you 5 day challenge service, sets everything up for his clients. One of his clients was making 5K a month. With the 5 day challenge, he made $160,000. Another one of his clients made $460,000. And my client was struggling to make any sales. He made zero sales in the past 3 months.
Mm.
And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Why are you not talking about these case studies right off the bat? Why isn't it on your, talk about strategy? Why isn't it this the first thing that people see on your profile? Fine, right? You say you help them make more money in 5 days than the whole year. So what? Where's the proof, right? And we worked on his confidence. Amazing results. No confidence.
Mm-hmm.
First week, 6K, next week 4K, the other week 10K, 20K in 2 weeks, right? Why? Because that was the missing component, confidence. And the second thing that popped up when you were sharing about your clients, and it's interesting, this just came to me. Like we have this phrase, what does it take? What does it take to get a specific result, right? But what if we replace it with what does it give, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need to give? Or rather, who do you need to give to the world to achieve that certain result? Are you bringing your best self to this table? And your best self is like, there's no perfect version of you, but there's definitely that future super successful version of you that you're aiming for. Bring that version of you here in the now. Market like that person would, sell like that person would, lead like that person would, have the standards that that person would. And you're giving the world a whole new energy, and the world is giving that back to you in many different ways.
Mm-hmm. In business conversations I hear so often, there's a lot of emphasis on strategic planning, in goal setting, having your vision, and all of that. And what I really hear you talking about, what we've really, honed in on here in this interview, is because we have talked not at all about strategy. We have not talked at all about, vision and all of that. It's really about, confidence. And like you said, who do you need to be to get that result? So, um, I'd love to hear a little bit about the conversation that you are having with your potential clients. Are they coming to you where they already realize that there's something going on internally, or are they still looking externally? And then, in other words, how open are they to looking at that, or are you then having this conversation and then helping them to see that, wait a minute, it's maybe not this tactic that you need, it's really more just inside of you is where we need to work first.
It that's great. That's a good question. And to kind of circle a bit back, strategy and vision are essential, right? There's no way you can build that level of confidence without having a vision of where and who you want to be. There's no way you can bring that version of you forth. There's no way you can create. It's like, yeah, it's again the yin and yang idea.
Mhm.
Now, in terms of the people coming to me, it depends on the person. I mean, if we're talking about a shamanic healer, right? Of course, they're going to be a lot more self-aware of, hey, my energy's a bit off. I'm not really, being in I'm not flowing, let's say a lot. That's kind of the language that will be used. Or I'm not into my abundance, I'm into scarcity, and so on and so forth. Whereas the majority of, in terms of awareness, it's okay. I just need more clients, or I need better clients. I just need a way to get more leads through the door. The general tendency is to look at the outside, the external events happening. And yeah, that's kind of where I focus my marketing as well, right? There's like,
Mhm.
you have to soften the mind first, the physical mind, before you can reach the heart.
So they're coming to you with some degree of openness about having that conversation, and you're not necessarily having to convince them, well, that you're looking externally, but we also need to be looking internally. And
It depends. It depends. It's like, I speak to where the client is at. I mean, if strategy is the most important thing, what I usually like to do is talk strategy and show them
Mhm.
how simple strategy is, and it's like not a big deal. And then say, hey, guess what? You know all of this. So why do you think you're not doing it? Well, because, and then we get to the core.
And that's where it really comes out,
Yeah.
right? You hear it all the time, in procrastination, and that's another word that comes up in my group coaching program, which I've been running for, this is, I think, 13 years now that we've been running it. And people know what to do. You can give them the steps, you can give them the checklist, you can give them the procedures. I can give two people the exact same set of instructions. One will take that and run with it in Excel, and the other one appears to still be at the starting line. And then when you unpack it, it's like, I'll get the question like, how do I stop procrastinating? And I always, I've this is something that it's a question I journal about. It's something that I uh, look to understand more and more. And my today's understanding of procrastination is really a matter of clarity. And what I find is when people know what they need to do, but they don't do it, there's still something that they're unclear about. Um, and maybe it is like, oh, if I do this new thing, I'll be undoing all these other good things that I have in place, like the case of your client. But I'd love to hear your opinion on procrastination and why people aren't doing what they need to do, even though they need to do it.
I think you're on point that it's clarity, but what where people miss the mark on is, which dimension are we talking about in terms of clarity? And here's what I mean. Um, one of my clients, a copywriter, she was making good money. She was making six figures, but working like a maniac. But no matter how hard she worked, she couldn't go over 12K a month, right? And she wasn't even a client. We did this session together. I had her connect with her father. Her father had passed away for maybe over a decade. And the thing that she connected with was one of the last things that her father told her on her deathbed. Can you guess what that was?
Hmm. On her on
On
his
his
deathbed.
deathbed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I nothing comes to mind instantly about that.
He said, "Don't be greedy."
Don't be greedy. Hmm. That
And
can be
this,
interpreted a lot of ways, and then if that then installs a belief, you're going to start acting in accordance with that. Wow.
yeah,
And what
yeah.
does don't be
My
greedy mean?
my client was procrastinating selling to higher level clients, even though she made her clients millions. She was
Hmm.
procrastinating showing up and saying, "Hey, this is who I work with. These are my people." And she was just staying
Hmm.
in that comfort zone of, "Hey, at least I know the money's coming in every month, right?" So the reason why she was procrastinating was because in the back of her head, she still had that image of if she became too successful, she would
Hmm.
disappoint her father. We removed that, and then she made 25K a month with
Wow.
minimum effort
Hmm.
compared to the hustle and grind she was dealing with before. So yes, 100% it's clarity, but it's not that obvious where you need
Hmm.
clarity in.
So in this case, there's clarity, but there's also a belief that if I'm being bold, then I'm also dishonoring what my father said, and that I'm being greedy by wanting more. I am
More.
being greedy. That's what I hear you saying. And so
Yeah.
so that's where belief. So it's kind of like so clarity, but underneath all of that, that may be leading to the unclarity is this belief that, because I could see the sort of the tug of war that could become happening in one's mind. It's like, oh, I know I need to charge more, I know that my work is worth more, but I also made this promise not to be greedy, so therefore I that it's out of alignment, and that's going to lead to unclarity. I'm unclear about what I believe, and I'm unclear on what I'm even allowed to charge, because it doesn't align with uh with with what I was told and now what I believe, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah. 100%.
interesting.
Yeah.
I could unpack that one all day, because, and again, this is the that pursuit of not only understanding it more from my own perspective, but then how do I improve the when I'm coaching people, how to improve the coaching that then is delivered to them. And no, there's no one size fits all answers. There's always a layer underneath it, right? And it's like, what is that? And in this client's case, it was don't be greedy. In another client's case, it could be some other belief or decision that they have made that puts them out of alignment when they want more, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of us are more afraid of success because it's a new world
Mm-hmm.
and it's comes with a lot of uncertainty. Because like you try something, you fail, you can go back to what you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find the whole thing fascinating. So I want to turn the conversation a little bit more to the work that you do, because I think for anyone listening in here who is, I mean, our audience are entrepreneurs, different, various different levels, growing their business. And I think that if there's one thing that we all have in common is there's always a there's always a goal. There's always I want to build this thing. I want to grow this thing. Um, and and it's not always money, but the way we often measure ourselves and our success is, oh, I do this much I do 6 figures a year, or 7 figures a year, or 8 figures a year, or 9 figures a year, whatever it is. And so wherever you're at in that journey right now, and you might be finding that maybe you have stayed at the same level for a certain period of time, unable to kind of break past that. or you have a goal and for some reason you have not been able to realize that goal. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about, for anyone who's listening in who might be thinking about that, what is your advice in terms of some of the next steps they should take to, maybe look at things differently and, to take some new steps towards getting a better result?
It's difficult because it's very personal to each person. I mean, if just logging into YouTube and following, sometimes it works like the right information to hits you at the right time and it just knocks you over the head so strongly that you instantly create a huge shift. But it's difficult to understand what's holding you back because my coach says, I don't have eyes in the back of my head, to see what's going on, to see myself from the outside. The best thing you could do is if you don't have people who like having someone who can clearly see things for you, we're always so much better at seeing other people's challenges and the solutions for them as long as we can tell them the truth. Having somebody who can speak the truth to you, whether you're just starting out and maybe a friend who's honest with you and gets what you're doing with the business, gets the vision, gets your goals, right? And can really support you and tell you, hey, you know what? I feel like this is like you're not showing up really here in this way, right? Whether it's being having more discipline or more confidence or whatever that is. And if you're at a higher level, that's even harder to get honesty around you because you're surrounded by people who don't want to fall from your grace, who look up to you, and that's even harder. But yeah, that's kind of it. Having that external perspective with 100% honesty, and they don't give a fuck if they upset you, that can be very cathartic and can launch you forward. And as long as you take it through your own filter and see how it fits, you try it out, right? Is this good for me? Do I feel good applying this, or do I see the potential in it? Or not, right? But at least you get to try out something new, like a new shirt or something like that, see how it
Mhm.
fits. Yeah, we can see what we can see at the end of the day. So, but that's fine, right? It's okay. I think a lot of the pain and frustration is feeling like if we don't figure it out ourselves, we somehow failed. We haven't.
Mm. Well, that's a really good point. I think, what you're really speaking to there, and I know it was a very tough question to answer, but really that's the benefit of coaching is that it's, so many people do try to answer this for themselves. And, what if you just had a conversation with someone like Bogdan who could help you to ask different questions, who could see things in a different way? And everyone's answer is going to be different. So what is your answer? What is the thing uh that you need to become aware of, and where changes can be made that can lead to bigger impact, bigger results in your business? And I'll make sure that all your Bogdan, all your contact information is beneath this video. And if you're listening to this on podcast, it will be right there in the show notes. And reach out to him. And so now, before we run out of time, I know that you also have a podcast, and so I wanted to ask you, what is the best way for people to connect with you and reach out to you, and then tell us a little bit about your podcast as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Chuck. Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily have to be, a coach. Somebody who can be honest with you. That's the number one thing. And if you don't have somebody like that, yeah, sure. Find the right coach for you. Um, but yeah, the best way to get in touch with me would be my Instagram. I'm playing around with a lot with Instagram Reels. I'm making them funny and educational, using a bit of my martial arts flair. Like the other day, I was like, how many business growth insights can I share while hitting these dog toys with nunchucks, and so like silly stuff like that because of my twisted sense of humor. But if you want to learn more about my work, YouTube or the podcast is called Real Freedom Elevator. I interview 6 to 9 figure earners to talk about what freedom is for them, how they're strategizing and optimizing their businesses for freedom, because not everyone signed up for, 12-hour, 14-hour work days and not seeing your family. I mean, they're fine as long as you have that quality time in and you're loving yourself first because you're the source of the business.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's what we do in the podcast.
Fantastic. Well, we'll make sure all those links, the Instagram and the podcast and whatever else you want to send me, I will put that right beneath this video and in the podcast show notes. And I encourage people to go and have a listen. Go check out YouTube, go check out the podcast, reach out, connect with Bogdan on Instagram. Obviously you can, if you're here listening right now, you know that it's time well spent. Now, before we bring this episode to a close, because all of this has been amazing, and we've done this really deep dive into, really what does it take to, grow ourselves and grow our business. And, a big part of that journey over the last 30 years has been what I've learned from some great thought leaders in terms of books, some that talk about business strategy, others that talk about really what it takes to grow ourselves and be successful. And I certainly have my favorite book. So while I have you here, and I ask this of all my guests, if you had a book that you would recommend to someone is a must read, or maybe they're even their next read, and I know it's challenging to pick only one, but if you were to pick one book to recommend, which book would that be?
Could I give two? Or
Okay,
does it
I
need
can.
to be
I've
one?
done that for other guests, so I will allow it today. There you go.
Appreciate it. The books that had the highest impact on my life personally were The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. This is actually first ever personal development book I ever read. And the second one was The Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer.
Really, I have not read either of those. I've heard of the first one. The second one I've not heard of. So tell us a little bit about both of the books, just so we can kind of get the idea.
The thing that I remember from the book was actually the first page. It just stood out to me so much. Like there was this sales board or whatever. There was like recapping the sales numbers for the month, and he's like, Carl sold 5 times more than any of you than the average. Why is that? Is Carl 5 times smarter than you? No, or whatever. Did he work 5 times hard? No. He just thought 5 times bigger than you. That was like,
Mm.
it just blew my mind. And the Surrender Experiment by Michael Singer, this guy who just wanted to be a yogi and meditate in the woods, he made a decision one day that he was just going to trust life no matter what. And you would he would talk about these things that would happen and it'd be like, oh my God, this the horrible. What are we gonna do? But then he would just center himself, saying, you know what, there's a purpose for this. And then immediately after, this huge opportunity opened up for him every single time. So it was a huge lesson in the sense that what we love to call negative is actually opening a tremendously big door that we previously didn't have access to, as long as we keep this love and trust and yeah, confidence that it's working for us, that life is actually working for us. Incredibly powerful book.
Wow. Amazing recommendation. And I'll add that to our library, and I will put the links to that beneath the video and in the podcast as well. Mhm.
What's your favorite book, Chuck?
My favorite book, I've got several, and of course, it is so difficult to pick just one. But there's one that I have listened to and re-listened to again and again and again. And it's a book that was written in the 20s called The Game of Life and How to Play It by
Mm,
Florence Scovel Shinn. And
right.
it's interesting because it's not about a certain thing that you do. It's it's really about who are you being, what do you believe? That, if you don't believe something is going to happen, then it's not going to happen. And so it's like, and so to really be mindful of the things that we say and the beliefs that we have, and do they align with the result that we want to have
Mm,
in our life? Do I want to have a thriving business? Is it a business that I enjoy and love, that's growing? Am I in a relationship that is loving and thriving? And there are just so many different scenarios in that business and or in that book. And then also stories of people who, the throwaway comments like, "Oh, you're a pain in my ass," or whatever, and then all of a sudden that person has a medical condition in that part of
in
their
there.
body,
Yeah.
and so we have to be careful of the things that we um, say. There was a story in there about a person saying, "Yeah, if I keep listening to people like you, then I'm going to end up living in a box." And so within a few years, that person had a financial upset. They lost their home, ended up being homeless and living in a box.
Wow.
And so it's,
That's
we have to be
devastating.
very mindful of the things that we repeat, the things that we say, the things that we believe, and are in true alignment. And we might be joking and we might be sarcastic, but our subconscious mind does not know that.
Right. Hmm.
So that's
Hmm.
I'll list that book in the show notes as well. It's a great book. It's a very easy read. In fact, you can find the audiobook for free on YouTube. That's it's a good one.
Game of life and how to play it.
Yeah, The Game of Life and How to Play It. And so who knew that somebody in the 20s was so wise? So
Yeah, it's ancient
Um, so,
knowledge.
anyways, Bogdan, thank you so much for the time in this interview. This has been amazing. And so I think we could spend hours really unpacking, so many of these things. But at a high level, I think it gives business owners a place to look, and also a place to connect, to, to have these conversations, and to really look at things differently. And so, if we were to end this episode with just final words of wisdom or piece of advice that you want to leave people with, what would you leave them with here today?
You're stronger than you know.
Mhm. So true. You're stronger than you know. Great words to end this episode by. So, Bogdan, thank you so much for being my guest on this show. For our audience who's still listening in and getting value from everything that you learned here today. And I want this to be time well spent for you. I would like you to take one thing that you identified, or that you thought about, or stood out to you in this episode. And I want you to identify an action step that you can take today towards that. Maybe it's reaching out to Bogdan. Maybe it's reading one of these books. Maybe it's some other idea, or maybe something that you've been putting off, or like, you know what, I was going to do this bold thing and I have not been doing it. I'm going to go and take a step towards that today. Go and do that. And, despite the challenges, despite the obstacles, believe that you can do this. Keep moving forward. This has been the Creative Collaboration Show. I'm Chuck Anderson, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, everybody.